Hello, everyone. In this session, I want to briefly speak about a defining moment in India's energy and technology journey. As India balances rapid economic growth with climate responsibility and long-term energy security, nuclear energy is once again moving to the center of the policy making and policy thinking as well. This video is in the context for understanding India's nuclear policy and the significance of the recent SHANTI Act 2025, the Sustainable Harnessing and Advancement of Nuclear Energy for Transforming India Act 2025. I think is a landmark legal reform that represents strategic modernization rather than deregulation. Let us examine how law, technology, and innovation are being deliberately aligned to position India as a global leader in clean, reliable, and secure nuclear energy. India today stands at a critical juncture in its energy transition. Climate change, rising electricity demand, energy security concerns, and the need to sustain long-term economic growth have collectively forced a rethinking of how power is generated and governed. And nuclear energy has re-emerged as a strategic pillar in India and elsewhere in the world for clean energy future. The Sustainable Harnessing and Advancement of Nuclear Energy for Transforming India Act 2025, popularly known as SHANTI Act, represents a decisive moment in this journey. Far from being a routine legal reform, the Act functions as a strategic blueprint for aligning energy security, technological innovation, and sovereign control. This act signals India's intent to modernize its nuclear governance architecture rather than liberalize it in a conventional sense. The state does not withdraw from nuclear energy. Instead, it realigns the boundary between strategic control and peaceful innovation. Act reflects a confidence-driven policy shift in which the government retains command over nuclear risk and national security while deliberately unlocking innovation in non-sensitive areas or non-sensitive domains. This approach reflects India's long-term ambition of reaching 100 gigawatts of nuclear capacity by 2047 and positioning itself as a global leader rather than merely a power producer. To appreciate the significance of this reform, it is important to briefly understand nuclear energy. Nuclear energy is generated through a controlled atomic reactions, primarily nuclear fission, in which atoms such as uranium are split to release large amount of heat. Uranium and other radioactive elements could also be there. And this heat, which is produced, converts water into steam that drives the turbines to generate electricity. This process emits no greenhouse gases, as you find in thermal power plant. And this makes nuclear energy one of the most reliable sources of clean baseload and power. Globally, nuclear energy complements renewable sources like solar, wind by providing continuous electricity regardless of weather conditions. Despite its advantages, nuclear power remains underutilized in India's energy mix. As of 2024-25, Nuclear energy contributes roughly 3% of total electricity generation, with an installed capacity of 8.78 gigawatts across 24 reactors at 7 locations in India, with indigenous 700 megawatt reactors and international cooperation on larger units. Capacity is projected to reach somewhere around 22.3 gigawatts by 2031 to 32. However, India's long-term ambition is far more expansive. 100 gigawatts of nuclear capacity by 2047. And I think at this point, India would achieve energy independence. These figures highlight both progress and untapped potential, the very gap this legislation seeks to bridge. India's nuclear journey has always been guided by strong legislative oversight. The Atomic Energy Act 1962 established a complete state control over nuclear energy to ensure peaceful use and safety and national security. Subsequent amendments in 1986, 1987, 2015 allowed government companies to have a joint ventures to participate in nuclear generation while retaining strategic oversight. The Civil Liability for Nuclear Damage Act 2010 introduced a no-fault liability regime focused on public safety and compensation. Over time, this legal framework became fragmented and rigid, increasingly misaligned with modern technological realities and evolving energy needs. The issue was not excessive regulation, but outdated regulatory design. The need for a new law arose from multiple converging factors. India faces a rapidly rising electricity demand, ambitious clean energy and net zero commitments, and the requirement for reliable round-the-clock power for data centers, for industry, and urban infrastructure. At the same time, nuclear technology itself has advanced significantly, particularly with the emergence of SMRs, small modular reactors. This existing legal framework, the previous existing legal frameworks lacked flexibility, clarity on private participation. Modern risk-sharing mechanisms were absent, and integrated regulation for non-power nuclear applications. Most importantly, what this legislation addresses. And this act almost bridges these gaps. The Act's core objective reflect the modernization agenda. It aims to enable clean and reliable baseload energy, support India's energy transition, encourage innovation and advanced reactor technologies, permit limited and regulated private participation, retain full sovereign control over sensitive nuclear domains, and strengthen safety and regulatory oversight. These objectives are pursued simultaneously. It's not sequential. This indicates an integrated policy vision rather than piecemeal reform. If you look at my X timelines over last 3 years, you will notice that I have shared a steady stream of important news, insights or analysis on nuclear technology, especially India's progress on SMR, small modular reactors, and the strategic shift from uranium-based system towards plutonium, thorium. India has got reserves when it comes to thorium. One of the most significant shift introduced by SHANTI Act is its approach to private sector participation. For the first time, private entities are permitted to participate in nuclear power generation, power operations, equipment manufacturing, and certain stages of fuel fabrication. That includes limited enrichment of uranium-235 up to some notified threshold. This participation is not open-ended. It is licensing based, subject to mandatory safety authorizations and closely supervised by a regulatory authority. This model moves India from a state monopoly to a regulated participation without compromising national security. At the same time, this act also draws clear red lines around activities that remain under exclusive government control. These include enrichment or isotopic separation, unless specifically notified, spent fuel management and reprocessing, high-level radioactive waste handling, heavy water production, and other strategic facilities notified by the government. This explicit demarcation ensures strategic autonomy while providing certainty to market participants. A major institutional reform under SHANTI Act is the statutory recognition of Atomic Energy Regulatory Board, AERB. This act mandates safety authorization for all radiation-related activities, establishes clear licensing, suspension, cancellation mechanisms, and strengthens the emergency preparedness and quality assurance systems. This enhances regulatory independence and public trust, both of which are essential for long-term nuclear program expansion. This act is also replacing the earlier one-size-fits-all liability model with a graded liability framework. Operator liability limits now they vary now based on a reactor type, reactor size, installation characteristics, and there are caps specified in second schedule of the SHANTI Act. There are three schedules. If you see the structure of the act, three schedules are there. This clear compensation mechanisms and specialized claims authorities are establishing, aligning India with international best practices while protecting both the victims and the operators. Beyond electricity generation, this act provides a structured framework for non-power applications of nuclear radiation technologies in healthcare, in agriculture, in industry, and for research. Certain research and development activities may even be exempt from licensing, this reflects an explicit policy choice to encourage innovation in low-risk domains. This legislative reform is closely linked with nuclear energy mission, which was, you can see the glimpses which was announced in the Union budget of 2025-26. Huge sum was allocated, rupees 20,000 crores for small modular reactors. The mission targets at least 5 indigenously designed SMRs operational by 2033. This mission targets also targets this BARC led, it includes rather BARC-led Bharat Small Modular Reactor, and a high temperature gas-cooled reactor for hydrogen generation. So together, these initiatives position India at the forefront of advanced nuclear technologies. Even as the sector opens up, the Shanti Act preserves strong strategic and sovereign safeguards. The government retains emergency takeover powers, control over the nuclear fuel cycle, protection of sensitive technologies, and coordinated oversight across institutions. This balance between openness and sovereignty is defining feature of this reform. One of the least discussed yet most consequential impact of Shanti Act lies in its effect on innovation, especially patenting. Historically, Section 4 of the Patent Act and Section 20 of the Atomic Energy Act imposed a blanket prohibition on patenting inventions relating to atomic energy. The government has had final authority to determine whether an invention fell within this scope, could inspect patent applications, restrict foreign filings, claim ownership over inventions developed in government-controlled establishments. While designed for strategic security, this framework created deep uncertainty for researchers, startups, private firms working on adjacent or downstream technologies. The core problem was not merely restriction, but ambiguity. Innovators often could not determine whether their work would later be classified as relating to atomic energy, leading to late stage refusals of their patent application. The hesitant R&D investments stalled innovation in civil, medical, industrial, and digital application which involved radiation or the technologies around this radiation. This act does not dilute the security provisions of the Patents Act, but instead I would say it clarifies the structure within which they operate by clearly delineating government exclusive activities, separating fuel cycle strategic domains from other nuclear related operations, and introducing a license-based participation framework. The Act narrows uncertainty while retaining the sovereign control. Section 38 of the Shanti Act, read with Schedule 3, effectively shifts the regime from absolute exclusion to conditional sovereign supervised patentability for peaceful uses of nuclear energy. For inventors and researchers, this clarity is transformative. They can now better assess whether their work lies within the prohibited strategic domains or within permitted areas such as reactor components, safety systems, diagnostics, software related to operations, material science, healthcare, agriculture, or industrial radiation uses. Innovation is encouraged in peripheral and enabling technologies, particularly those related to small modular reactors, without compromising the security. Predictable regulatory pathways reduce this risk of retrospective rejection, and this will make R&D more viable around this technological area. All core safeguards remain intact in the Patents Act. The government retains the final authority over inventions relating to atomic energy, mandatory disclosure, obligations. They all continue. to remain part of that statute. Foreign patent filings require permission. Strategic inventions developed in government establishment remains state-owned. Innovation is enabled but not at the cost of sovereignty. From a systematic perspective, the legislative architecture reveals a deliberate transition from absolute exclusion of nuclear inventions to conditional, controlled innovation, especially enablement for non-sensitive and industrial applications. This is not a deregulation. It is a strategic re-engineering of the nuclear innovation pipeline to meet energy sufficiency goals, climate targets, SMR-driven timelines, and domestic talent and capital mobilization. In the global context, nuclear technology is entering a second phase of strategic relevance, shaped less by Cold War geopolitics and more by decarbonization. And advanced manufacturing is another factor. Unlike countries that rely primarily on rapid state-driven scale, India is aligning law, economics, and technology to build a sustainable innovation ecosystem. Legislation is used not just as a control mechanism, but as an enabler of R&D certainty and capital formation. India's comparative advantage and competitive advantage lies in its human capital density. A large pool of engineers, scientists, system designers, deep institutional expertise through institutions, world-class institutions like BARC and DAE, a growing private sector expertise in engineering, strong digital and control capabilities. This act seeks to integrate this talent into applied nuclear innovation rather than confining it to closed establishments. This strategic target, such as 100 gigawatts by 2047, leadership in SMR, small modular reactors, and expanded non-power application function as credible signals to industry, academia, and investors too. SMR in particular represent a technological inflection point, enabling grid-scale power, distributed energy, hydrogen production within a single national program. Few countries pursue such breadth simultaneously. At a deeper structural level, India's approach is anchored in a three-stage nuclear program. One, pressurized heavy water reactors, PHWRs, using natural uranium. Second is fast breeder reactors, which uses plutonium. And third, thorium-based system. This has got a long-term strategy because of indigenous development of the reactors based on thorium, and we have thorium reserves. Compared with, if you compare with China's rapid scale-up, I think India's model prioritizes institutional depth, legal coherence, export-oriented technological leadership with many added advantage of talent pool of India. And I think this may prove more resilient and successful over a period of time. This reform, as I understand, is a system-level intervention. I will share and read out the relevant portions of the key references that will help explain how nation is addressing two critical challenges. One, reducing the average time required to build nuclear reactors from earlier 10 to 12 years towards a shorter duration, especially modular driven timelines. And second is capitalizing on India's talent pool by enabling innovation in this sector. These references I'm going to project to you includes the World Nuclear Industry Status Report 2025, of course, the recent one, Section 38 and Schedule 3 of SHANTI Act, Section 20 of Atomic Energy Act, and Section 4 of the Patents Act. I'll just share it. I believe it's now visible to you. This is a very important document which was this analysis is when it was a bill. It got assent, presidential assent in December, and it is now an act after enactment. I want to take you to some important portions of this document, and if at all you want, you can read it later on. India currently operates 24 reactors across 7 locations with a total installed capacity of 8.78 gigawatts. And long-term mission, the government has announced a nuclear energy mission to achieve 100 gigawatts by 2047, aligning with India's clean energy goals. And the mission, nuclear energy mission, which was announced in budget this year, and there is a huge allocation of resources to drive the design, development, and deployment of SMRs. At least the nation is targeting at least 5 indigenously designed SMR to be operational by 2033, which will strengthen India's clean energy roadmap. And initiatives by world-class institutions of BARC. So this is a point to be more stressed upon and relied upon, that how successful it looks like in the future. And the gaps have been addressed by this regulation statute. The sustainable harnessing and advancement of nuclear energy for transforming India, SHANTI, now an Act 2025. Major highlights: private sector participation, modern licensing and safety framework, regulation of nuclear and radiation uses, boost to research innovation, strengthened nuclear liability and compensation system, statutory empowerment of nuclear regulator, enhanced security safeguards and emergency preparedness, and dispute redressal mechanism. This reflects the long-term mission. Second, I want to talk some portions of SHANTI Act. Let us go to section 38, which pertains to innovation. The central government may grant patents for inventions which, in its opinion, are for peaceful uses of nuclear energy and radiation, provided that the inventions relating to activities specified in subsection 5 of section 3, or which in the opinion of the central government are sensitive in nature or having national security implications, shall not be patentable, and such invention shall be deemed to have been made or conceived by the central government. Any person desirous of obtaining a patent in relation to an invention under this section shall make an application. If the question arises as to whether an invention is related to any of the activities specified in subsection 5 of section 3, is sensitive in nature or having national security implications, controller shall refer the application to the central government. The central government may issue directions to the controller in relation to any patent application under this act. Any person who has reason to believe that an invention made by him is related to nuclear energy shall communicate the central government of its nature and description before disclosing to any third party. Any application for a patent outside India shall be governed by Section 39 of Patents Act 1970. The central government shall have the power to inspect at any time any pending application and specification before its acceptance, and if it considers that the invention does not relate to the activities referred in subsection 1, may issue directions to refuse the application on that ground. So this remains important if you want to gauge the grant of innovations around this technology. Second, let us talk about third schedule, which is referring to Section 4 of the Indian Patent Act. Inventions relating to nuclear energy, the patents may be granted for inventions relating to nuclear energy subject to the provisions of this Act and Section 38 of SHANTI Act. Also, a relevant portion of this report, World Nuclear Industry Status Report 2025, I will just take you to the relevant portion just to have a glimpse of. This also talks about the global uh, nuclear energy generation, and you can see here most of the countries, as of the mid 2025, there is not a single active power reactor construction on the other continents which are considered to be developed nation, whereas India has got very important pipelines and very inspiring plants. Second, let us go to one more citation in this report. The Indian government in February 2025 announced that there would be at least 5 indigenously developed SMRs, small modular reactors, which will be operational by 2033. There have also been announcements about imported SMR, whether small or large reactors. India's plan to build or import nuclear technology have mostly not materialized. In addition, the many challenges confronting SMRs, especially the lack of economic viability, render the ambitious construction plans quite unrealistic. This statute, Shanti Act, addresses these gaps by facilitating innovation, encouraging the private participants, and capitalizing on the talent pool of the country. Second, one technical point I would like to make, you would be able to gauge that gap which is being addressed. 2 additional reactors have been listed as under construction for a decade or more. The prototype fast breeder reactor. This gives an impression that timelines are very important. You can see here in the 3 years, this is a graph wherein you can see the time required for construction of a nuclear reactor, and it varies from country to country. India on an average 12 to 13 years, global average is somewhere around 9 years, and China excels by making these reactors in 6.5 years. So these are some important gaps which this statute will address. This is the previous, this is the present Section 4 of the Indian Patent Act, which no patent shall be granted in respect of an invention relating to atomic energy. So this is very broad bar. Then Section 20, this is a provision of Atomic Energy Act. Subsection 1 is explaining what all reactions are barred. As from the commencement of this act, no patent shall be granted for inventions which in the opinion of the central government are useful for or relate to the production, control, use and disposal of atomic energy, or the prospecting, mining, extraction, production, physical and chemical treatment, fabrication, enrichment, canning, or use of any prescribed substance or a radioactive substance, or the ensuring of safety in atomic energy operations. These are the special provisions in which the patents are barred, not excluded. These are few documents I rely on to talk about this. Now, the explanation, the document which I projected first was about, it was clearly mentioning the Shanti Bill. Now the bill, and now it has become an act. A bill becomes an act through a constitutionally prescribed parliamentary process. A bill is introduced in either house of the parliament. Your representative, that is parliamentarians, debate, and it must be passed by both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Once passed, it is presented to the President of India for assent under Article 111 of Constitution of India. Upon receiving presidential assent and being notified in the official gazette, the bill becomes act, or the bill attains the force of law and becomes an act. India's nuclear program has historically faced long construction timelines. I was referring to some global reports, and you will see the smart move of the regulations or the government has taken to address these gaps. Long construction timelines of duration more than 12.5 years, which exceeds the global average of 9 years something, which I showed you in the graph of global report on status report on nuclear energy. One example is Rajasthan Atomic Power Project, which was operational in previous year 2025. It took 13 years, 7 months for construction. These extended timelines reflect a steep learning curve associated with complex nuclear innovation, particularly in first of a kind and early indigenous reactor projects where design refinements, uh, maturity of regulatory validation, safety integration, this occur concurrently with construction. This phenomena is not unique to nuclear energy or technology, and it is observed across other complex technologies as well. While such delays increase capital lock-in period, financing cost, time to revenue realization, they also represent front-loaded investment in institutional and technological learning. As experience accumulates, designs become standardized, construction durations tend to compress, improved capital efficiency is there. India's current emphasis on standardized reactor design and small modular reactors is, I think, analytically wonderful, as it directly targets the flattening of this learning curve, aiming to reduce build times, lower the capital risk, and enhance economic viability of future nuclear deployments. By transforming legislation, clarifying innovation boundaries, investing in SMRs and non-power applications, leveraging human capital, committing to long-term targets, India is positioning itself to lead in advanced nuclear technologies through institutional coherence rather than speed alone. The Act does not open the door to unrestricted patenting, but it opens clarity. In innovation ecosystems, clarity often matters more than deregulation. It transforms uncertainty into structure, hesitation into confidence, isolated research into coordinated national mission. Thank you. Stay connected.